Well, greetings, everybody. Welcome once again to the Rec Poker Podcast. As always, our official sponsor is Running Aces Racetrack, Casino, and Hotel. And our other sponsors are Learn Pro Poker, Website Amp, and the Small Business Community. In this chats edition of the podcast, we're actually going to be sharing with you part of our seminar from June. If you are a premium member at Rec.Poker, you know that every month we do these seminars for our members. People can engage in the conversation. We do a whole bunch of stuff, but we thought it'd be fun to actually spend one of our episodes sharing just a sample from our seminar on 3-betting. So that is what this is going to be all about today. My name is Steve Fredlin, and I'm the host of the Rec Poker Podcast. And normally we have a panel, but today you'll just hear a little bit from Chris Jones as he introduces the seminar. Chris is our director of content. You'll also hear a little bit from John Somsky later on about the winners in the home games. But make sure you stay tuned for that, because John is going to go over why it is so important that you register your PokerStars alias on your Rec Poker account. You don't need to be a paid member, but you do need a free Rec Poker membership, and you put your PokerStars alias out there. If you don't do that, you are not going to be allowed into the PokerStars home games if you're not already a member. And if you are an existing home game club member, you are going to be suspended as of January 1st unless you do that. We need that to be done because that is how we're going to build community. That's how we're going to aggregate results. There's a whole bunch of reasons to do it. But so go out to Rec.Poker, get your free membership, and in your profile, in your extended profile, put your username for PokerStars out there. That'll take care of it. All right. So listen to John later on in the show. And for now, I'm just going to turn it over to Chris Jones, and he's going to take it from here.
Well, welcome everyone. This is Chris Jones, 5x5 on PokerStars and Twitter. And today for the podcast, we're going to kind of do a behind the scenes look at one of our seminars. Every month, Rec Poker for premium members puts out a seminar based on member input for a topic each month. And we've already covered through the past year, we started off doing kind of a run-up to what was at the time a run-up towards trying to play in the World Series of Poker. Obviously, life changed that, but we still think it's a really good run-up for content. So we started off doing a back-to-basics thing with poker math. Then we had a seminar on opponent ranging, then on bet sizing, then on playing multi-field, multi-table tournaments. In June, we did a seminar, which is the one you're going to hear some highlights today, on 3-betting and how we all need to sort of find ways in our game to both establish and expand our 3-betting ranges. And then we carried on into July. We did a seminar on bluffing, and on the flip side, in August, we did a seminar on obtaining and getting value. We did one on big blind play, playing multi-way, the mental game, and the one upcoming for December is going to be on playing draws. And then in the coming year, in 2021, we've already got our next 6 planned. We're going to be doing, in January, it's going to be all about tells and reads. In February, we're going to be talking about board texture. In March, we're going to be talking about betting patterns and how to look at the ways betting patterns, what they mean, how to play them, what they often can tell you about opponent ranging and that kind of thing. In April, we're going to be talking about later hand play, so turn and river play. And then in May, we're going to be talking about finding, this one I'm really excited about. We're going to be talking about finding leaks, self-analysis, how to sort of like understand what you're doing wrong and how you can improve it, and how you can take those sort of moments of self-reflection. And then in June, we're going to cover satellites. So those are kind of the upcoming ones and the ones we've already done. All premium members have access to all of those. What you're going to hear here is about 20-25 minutes of the panel talking about some 3-betting tactics and theory. That seminar goes on to then go into some sort of in-depth hand examples. But we kind of each seminar, we kind of lay the groundwork first and then give some concrete examples so that kind of more theoretical conversation kind of starts to make more sense. So this is going to be that conversation, and hope you enjoy it.
And I think that actually starts to extend into kind of the rest of the conversation I wanted to have up front. And the way we're going to approach this seminar is really talking through some of the theoretical stuff, going through some of the stuff that Lexi talked about, but also some of our own thoughts around it, and then really extending into some real world examples. I think that is the most helpful way to really look at three betting situations. But the first thing that I wanted to talk about was sort of range construction. And the big question about like how often should you three bet is, I think, the one that is the really first starting point. Whether we have a polarized range or a linear range, which we'll talk about in a second, and how you build those and how you develop those. The thing that I think is really important to remember, and we can talk about this, but my sort of rule of thumb, and it's kind of nice that it's a three bet and it's 3%, is that 3% is a real magic number with three bets. And that is when you're playing online, you can have HUDs. When you're playing live, you can look at people and you kind of need to see, are they three betting once every 3 orbits or not? And you can start counting early on, really, by counting. This is one of the few things that I kind of have as my own mental HUD when I'm playing live, is I try to count how many times people are three betting. And it's because I think it's one of the most important factors for determining what kind of opponent you're up against. And if people are only three betting at a kind of a 3% or less clip, obviously they could be card dead. Obviously, if they're doing it more, they could always be getting aces. So this isn't completely reliable, but over the long haul, if people are playing this way, they're playing really straightforward, honest poker. They're playing, if you look at this, the slide here, this is a range that shows ace queen suited, ace king, jacks plus. It's 3.32% of hands. So if they are only raising, if they're only three betting with this very high end of their range, they're going to be doing it about 3% of the time. And so players who are doing it more are either going, whether they're doing a linear or polarized, they're extending this range. And players who are doing it less are the players who are you can respect their three bets more, but you can also exploit them a bit more by some overfolding and some things like that. So that's one way that I really try to measure this. It's a number that I keep in mind when I'm looking at three bet stats. Sometimes we have these stats and we're not sure what to do with them, but this is, I think, a really reliable one that you can really look at really closely. And again, in a live game, you can kind of say how many times, if they're not doing it, if they're three betting once every 3 orbits or less, they're probably in that kind of more static or reliable stage. But I'm curious about the panel. Do you keep track of this? Is this something you're looking for when you're playing both live and online? How do you approach this?
I pay attention to this a lot, and I track it on my HUD automatically because I play mostly online. But to me, it's a very revealing stat about somebody. Other than if they're just going card dead or not, especially if they get to showdown. If you get to see some of the holdings that people three bet, that tells you a lot about how they think about the game, what they're trying to accomplish with raises. It tells you what they think about strong play versus weak play. So I definitely track three bets, and I'd always make a note if that goes down to showdown, and try and walk back through the hand and see what kind of decisions they made. But even if you don't get to go down to showdown, I always pay attention to, is it on the button? Is it coming out of the blinds? Different types of three bets that I think add a lot of kind of texture and nuance to your strategy and defense. But yeah, I think it's one of the most important things to pay attention to, and it collects pretty quickly because it's a pre-flop stat, so you get to see a yes/no value pretty often.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like to look at the three bet stats on my HUD because you can tell how the person thinks about the game. Basically, if you've got this really low three bet percentage, you know that they're only doing it with the premium hands. So you can get a good feel for whether you should just be getting out of the hand based on what you raised with, right? Because I open pretty wide for the most part, and so when somebody three bets me with one of these ranges, it gives me a really good idea of whether I should continue or not. And the other factor that I look at when I'm determining if I should 3-bet somebody myself or react to their 3-bet is the position in which they did that action. So if somebody opens in the early position, my 3-bet range is going to change based on the fact that they opened in early position, because now their opening range is much tighter. So my 3-bet range has to be tighter. Now, as we go further around the table and somebody from middle position opens, I can open my 3-bet wider yet because of that. So we talked about linear and polarized, but it really has a lot more to do with the opener's position before you decide to 3-bet. And then again, looking at this type of stat where you have somebody that's only 3-betting 3% of the time, that really opens up my range to what I can open the pot with. So yeah, I think it's very important.
And the slide title is this: how often should you 3-bet? And I think that's a much more open question. I think that if you are 3-betting 3% or less of hands, then you're doing it wrong. But how often we should actually be 3-betting is really more open to style and some conversation. And I think it's something that we can really open up to the conversation. But actually, I'd be curious about some of our own, either our HUD stats or our own sort of maybe even goals. Like, how often do you strive to be 3-betting or should seem to be 3-betting in your own kind of play?
For me, it's pretty situationally dependent. I probably 3-bet out of the blinds a little more than most people, and maybe actually less on the button because I tend to take a lot of call lines on the button. But I think typically in a tournament, I'm going to be 3-betting between, say, like 7 and 12%, 7 to 10%, depends on the hands, of course. But overall, I should have drilled down and gotten you some positional stats. Dummy.
Yeah, I think I was paying attention over the. I'm sorry. I was paying attention over the weekend of what I was doing, and on my HUD stats, and I couldn't believe how high my 3-bet percentage was yesterday. It was very, very. I mean, I was in the 12% range, which I think is pretty. That's a pretty high range or high percentage against the field. I guess against the population. The population is never going to be that 3-bet, have that kind of 3-bet percentage. So I tend to be higher than that 3%, definitely.
Yeah, and position plays a lot into that too. Like if you're playing by position, you should be, changing that percent that you're 3-betting. And at 6 max, you're going to be in more prone positions to 3-bet when you're in position and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's for sure situational, and definitely by stack and position and all those kinds of things. But when I'm looking at my overall stats over a really long haul of play, I'm usually in that sort of 8 to 9% of hands that I find myself 3-betting. Sometimes less, sometimes more. In fact, I played this weekend in this tournament where everyone was limping. And I was raising a lot, but like the stats can be kind of deceptive too, because I would raise a bunch of limps and then limp calls, and then I had like a 1% 3-bet thing over about 250 hands, and I was like, what is going on here? What am I doing? But it was really about how everyone else is playing. So it's not really like something you can just totally look at, but it is something that you should be at least aware of about how you're playing. Go ahead.
Sorry, Chris. I'm just a quick question. I'm eating supper, so I'm muting my audio or my video. I'm curious, like what you guys see, and I don't know if you'll get into this or not, but the standard range of
people's 3-bet frequency. So like when you're playing online and you're looking at these HUDs and you're looking at everybody's stats, like what's kind of the normal distribution of bell curve, whatever, like what's the general range of people that you have enough hands with to feel like this is a pretty accurate depiction? Is it like most people are between 3 and 12%, like 95% of people are in that range with, boy, most people are at like 7 or 8? Or is it kind of this almost a binary thing where it's like, boy, you know what? Most of the people are either 3 to 5% or they're 10 to 13%. You know what I mean? Like, is it kind of a bell curve, or is it like a polarized sort of deal?
I feel like Jim and Taylor probably have really good answers to this. I mean, I have some observations, but I probably have less experience looking at all the databases.
I'm just going to pull Poker Tracker up in the background. So go ahead and I'll see if I can come up with any good answers.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you have different tendencies of different players. I see a wide range. Typically, I think somewhere around like 7 is average. I'll see people that have as low of numbers as 3-4%, and some people that are upwards of 15. So, I mean, you just get kind of like a wide array of people that are in there. But I would say it's probably kind of like a normal distribution around 7. I think the people that are at 3 and the people that are at like 15 are less common. But I mean, you have a lot of different player types out there. Everyone taking different approaches to 3-betting.
That's what I was trying to get, like, could we draw some inferences from that? Like, either generally people are really playing straightforward 3-betting, or they're high frequency. But what I'm hearing from you is no, it's across the board. It's not necessarily a modal sort of thing. That's interesting.
But I do think there is a player type, and it may be even more live than it is online. Although I am noticing in some of the some of the lower stakes online where there is a player type that is not 3-betting enough, where they're in that like 1, 2, 3% range, or they're the type of player that sits at the table and is just not 3-betting unless they have it. They like calling a lot. They like seeing flops. They don't like risking too much with non-premium hands. And one of the reasons I have the next slide up here, the next couple of slides up here, is not to suggest that this is anywhere near an ideal 3-betting range. It's nowhere near what I tend to 3-bet with, and I'm not suggesting that what I do is ideal, but I am suggesting that if you're finding yourself in that spot where you're only doing this at a very low frequency and only with those sort of jacks plus ace king type hands, that this is a potential place to start. Like, at least start to think about, how can I get 5% of my hand. These are two examples of sort of a 5% range that maybe is like your baby step into 3-betting when you've only been doing it traditionally with value. Is that this is the starting of a range where you might be able to like think about dipping your toes into the pool of 3-betting with like a 9-8 suited, or with your king queen suited, or pocket eights, or that kind of thing. So. And then this would be against a late position versus an early position open, and then this would be extending it even further to around an 8% range if we've got a middle to late position open, and we're in that late position and we're sort of like figuring out what to do next. This would be a way to extend that even further. So I'm not holding these up as things that you should even strive for. I'm just saying that this is the potential, and I don't know if the panel would even agree with this. This was my shot at like, if this is uncomfortable for you, this is a good place to maybe start your process. I don't know what anyone else would think about these ranges, or how you would suggest, if somebody has found themselves in that position where they're not 3-betting enough, how to make that first leap into trying it.
Yeah, I love it. I think the question you should be asking if you're trying to add hands to your 3-betting range is, what are the characteristics of these hands that I want to add? Are they blockers to the nuts? Are they hands that perform well against big pairs when you don't get the fold? Are they hands that are easy to play on the flop, like pairs? Are they hands that are easy to fold to a 4-bet? So you got to think about, what's the kind of game that you play? what's the style, what are the kind of decisions that you want to be making with these different hands, and then think about these different types of hands as like different tools or weapons that you can use in different battles. So there's no wrong way to draw these. I think Chris has done a great job getting at the idea that there's different categories of hands you might choose for those 3-bets because they have different attributes.
Jim hit on a lot of good things there, and I want to point them out and give them credit. Like, a lot of things that are really important here are blockers. Blockers can be really important. You don't want to be up against aces, so if you have an ace in your hand, it makes it that much less likely that your opponent has aces. So blockers can be a big part. What you do against a 4-bet, a lot of people don't think about, but is very important. If you take a linear approach, you're going to be putting yourself in weird positions where you don't necessarily know what to do against a 4-bet. Polar, it weakens your overall 3-betting range because you're adding a little bit lesser of hands to your 3-betting range, but it does make it easier to decide what you're going to do against a 4-bet. Like, Chris included some hands on here, the 9-8, 7-8 suited, the weak suited aces. Those are the types of hands that you know what to do when you get 4-bet, and then you have to make a decision. You fold. When you have king, queen offsuit, and you're adding that into your 3-betting range, all of a sudden now you're kind of in a weak spot where I'm 50-50 against jacks and tens, but I'm really in trouble against aces and I'm not really sure what to be doing type of thing. Like, those are two really important things. The blockers that you have, and what are you going to do if you get 4-bet?
I love that. I love that.
And that brings up the question that I was going to ask too. I think it leads right into that nicely is, as we're constructing our ranges, do you guys have a perspective on, we want a sort of balanced range for how we react to 4-bet. So is that part of your consideration, and sort of how do you split that up to say, okay, this is my 3-betting range. If I get 4-bet, in generalities, I want to be able to go with it X% of the time and fold it X% of the time. Like, is there generally either a conceptual, theoretical, or a practical ideal split of these things? So when I say, okay, these are my value 3-betting hands, I want an offsetting equal amount, different amount of sort of hands that I like the playability of, but I'm willing to fold to a 4-bet of.
Yeah, if you're old school analog like me, you put charts like this together with different sort of hand classes and then different things that you're supposed to do in different situations, depending on what the characteristics of your foe is in that particular spot. So you already know, as Rob was saying earlier, you already know what you're going to raise with, what you're going to call with, what you're going to fold with. Now it's just a question of seeing how the hand plays out. So when you're actually going through and designing ranges, you should have something you're going to push back with, something you're going to ditch, something you're going to play in position but fold out of position. That's like the whole fun of poker as far as I'm concerned.
Right, but I love that. I can't read Sanskrit, so I have no idea what you wrote there. But like, is there sort of a split when you sit down with your piece of paper and a pencil, I guess, and you're writing, you're saying, okay, I want to generally 3-bet in this spot, whatever, Jackson better, ace queen suited better, and ace king offsuit, whatever it is. And then you say, okay, well, that's X% of range, whatever that is, that's 9-10% of hands or whatever. Do I then want another 10% that are my bluffing hands, or do I want 5% because I want to be 2/3 value heavy? Do I want 20% because I'm willing to be only 1/3 value? And I know this generalities of blah, 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 but as a starting point for a basic recreational player building a range, how even are those scales of justice, I guess?
That's a great question. Chris, you sound like you've got something prepped for that.
Well, I don't know if I'm prepped and I don't know if I'm right, but my approach is to have a little bit more value, but not much. And what I really like to have with the polarized range is I'm less worried about, because I'm polarized, I tend to know what to do with a 4-bet. But if I'm called with a 3-bet, I like to have board coverage with my polarized range. So I like to be able to, no matter what the board comes, be able to have something that's possibly good for me, basically. So that's my approach, to be slightly value heavy, but not too value heavy. So if it's like, I don't know what the percentage would break down to.
I like that, though. I remember that was early, but way before all you guys this time when I interviewed Mike Schneider. He introduced me that topic of board coverage. And I thought that was a fascinating conversation. And it's fun to hear you bring that back up. I love that idea.
Mm-hmm. And the fun thing about this is there's a bunch of computer programs and stuff. The game theory optimal place, they have been solved for each of the variables that they put in there, and there's set answers to these types of questions in terms of how much value should you have compared to bluffs, and what should your bluffs be comprised of, type of things. But the thing is, we're not playing against computers. We're not playing against a computer that's just going to plug it into an equation and spit out an answer. We're playing against people, and the majority of us are playing, weekly tournaments or, some of the smaller tournaments at our casinos. And that completely changes what the computer would suggest on doing, right? Because they have different play styles. So to each person, it's kind of going to be different in terms of what should we theoretically be 3-betting with. But it does help to understand, we should be having, a polar range just from the theory aspect of it. And then we can change that based off of the opponents that we're playing against. I think a lot of computer programs lean towards a polar type of range when they're 3-betting instead of a linear, just due to the fact of, how they're breaking up that decision tree of what they do with certain hands.
And I think real quick on that too, I think GTO also assumes that you're going to continue to play GTO on future streets as well. So, that's part of maybe what Jim said. I kind of have to know my game too, what my limitations are. Am I capable of 3-betting with this, whatever this range is, and then knowing what the GTO plays on the next street? Because all of the GTO strategies are based on these stochastic iterative models running millions of things and coming back and knowing the right decision at every decision point. And so if I don't feel like I'm confident that I can play GTO the rest of the hand, I have to be comfortable with what my balanced range is as well, right? That's part of the deal.
So, and then here we are back. Thanks for listening to that. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said, all of our seminars start off with some kind of grounding in theory. Then we have some conversation and discussion, and then we go through and we really break down some examples to help that sort of saturate in and make a little bit more concrete sense. If you're interested, you can sign up for a free membership anytime, and I think it's a 7-day trial, and you can preview all of these. Even the backlog of these are all available on the Rec Poker Archive. So check them out. We enjoy doing them. We're always looking for ideas for content as well. So if you have any ideas that you'd like to see covered in an upcoming seminar, let us know. And with that, thanks for listening.
And now it's time for the home game results from November 16th to November 22nd, 2020. So first, a reminder about signing up for home games. In order to join the home game, you must have a free rec.poker account. And on that account, you must fill in the PokerStars username field with your exact PokerStars username. New members will not be approved to the club unless they have this a rec.poker account with their PokerStars username on their profile. And that can be private if you want. You don't have to make it public. To have your real name announced as a winner, however, then you must have that PokerStars username public on your profile, and your first name and last name must be public on the profile. So it's completely up to you. If you just want us to use your PokerStars ID when we announce the winners, that's fine. Or if you'd like to have your real name in there so your friends will actually know that you won, then go ahead and just make those fields public, and then we'll use those on the podcast announcements. And a couple of notes. You must confirm your email address when you're signing up for Rec.Poker in order to activate your profile. So be sure to check your spam folder for that email. We'll send one out as soon as your account is created, but it's not activated until you click a link that's going to be emailed to you. So make sure that you check the email, check your spam folder, check to see if it's in the forums post or forums tab if you use Gmail or one of the other tabs. So just make sure you check everywhere for that email, because we will be sending one for you. And then on January 1st of 2021, any existing members who are playing the home game are going to have their accounts suspended on PokerStars. So you won't be able to play in our home game until you have a rec.poker profile with your PokerStars username recorded. And, it's not the end of the world. As soon as you get that done, we'll reapprove you or reactivate your account in the home game club. But if you want to make sure you don't miss out on any of the action, make sure you have that done by January 1st. And I think we still have about 179 players who are at risk of being suspended at the time of this recording. Now on to the home game results. For the International Series, Megra 44, Doug Drabeck got his 4th win. And the Nightly Series, on November 16th, John Lancer, John Bensky, got his 3rd win. On November 17th, Gloves 1010, Colin Anderson got his 7th Nightly Series victory. That number is just so big, I stumbled over it for a second. That's really excellent feat. Then Illy Chippies, Jill Burke, got her 3rd Nightly Series victory. Be the Kid, Brian Morey, got his 1st Nightly Series victory. Congratulations, Brian. Keto Man 335, Kian Tavali, got his 4th Nightly Series victory. John Letzi, also known as John Letzi in real life, got his 3rd Nightly Series victory. And Cash 1016, Kevin Leiter, got his 3rd Nightly Series victory. Congratulations to all the winners, and tune in for more results next week.
All right. Well, great stuff. Thank you, John, for all of the work you do in the home games. Thank you, Chris, for all the work in the seminar. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Give us some feedback. Let us know if you kind of liked hearing some of that premium content over the podcast. It's a little bit different than how we do things. Thanksgiving week, we wanted to give everybody the week off from actually doing a podcast and getting a guest and all of that stuff. So we decided to piecemeal this together a little bit just to take that week off. But let us know if you liked hearing that content as part of the podcast or if there's anything else that you would like to hear. Just let us know. Thanks to our sponsors, Running Aces Racetrack, Casino, and Hotel, Website AMP, Learn Pro Poker, and the small business community. And thanks again, Chris, John, everybody that's been involved. And yeah, you guys, the listeners, man, it's so much fun having you guys out there. I get so many great emails and texts and direct messages from you guys who are engaged with what we're doing. Appreciate all of the support, all the love, and I wish all of you guys just a great holiday season as we sort of ramp up to the end of 2020 and hopefully into a more normal 2021 as we go. But thanks everybody for your love, your support, and your community building that you all do. Oh, hey, quick thing. Hold the date. January 27th, we're doing our first Rec Poker Awards show. It's going to be super fun on Zoom. Be a lot of cool people involved, a lot of awards given out, a lot of fun moments shared. I heard there might be some interesting things going on with some singing. I don't know yet. But anyway, mark your date, January 27th. We'll be doing that awards show. That is Central Time, probably 7 or 8 o'clock in the evening. So set your calendar for that, and we will chat with you later. Take care.